Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to go back into history a little further than I've done in some time. I'm going to go back to the 1930s, actually, and show you my collection of Diamond Star baseball cards. But before I do that, just want to kind of acknowledge it was another rough week for my baseball team. Hopefully they can kind of pull it out in the next few weeks, but they have a final game with the Angels tomorrow, but they've lost two of the first three and could have won all three. It's been pretty painful watching their offense lately, but I'm still haven't given up hope, and I'm hoping they're going to be able to pull it back and get back into competition here soon enough. My soccer team lost today to a team that was almost on the verge of getting relegated, so that was kind of a rough one to kind of watch as well. And the Bulls finally got bounced from the playoffs, deservedly so, but it was still kind of a rough sports week in Chicago here for the Chicago baseball fan. I have no idea what the Cubs did this weekend, though. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they had a really good weekend, and I'm just being very one-sided, thinking of the South side. But I wanted to kind of talk about, today we're going to talk about the 1934 to 1936 Diamond Stars. I stumbled onto this set as I was beginning to start looking at vintage cards for players from the 1930s and ones I might be able to purchase. And I started doing some research on the set as I looked at them, because I really thought they kind of like really stood out and actually were, in my opinion, better looking cards than the Gowdy cards, even though the Gowdy cards were much larger sets and actually beat them to print because they were out in 33 and 34, and this Diamond Star sets didn't come out until 1934 and were released over a period of 3 years, but only released 108 cards total. But what I really liked about these cards, I can kind of show you a comparison side by side. So I'm going to pull out a Gowdy card just so you can kind of see it when we start doing the review of the cards. Is the Art Deco design is very representative of the period, and you can begin to start seeing that as I show you some of the cards. So, which is kind of interesting. Over in the corner there is actually a Diamond Star of Carl Hubble, and that's actually, I think, when I look at that book back behind you, I think that's the only card I actually have from the book so far in my collection. So the Carl Hubble I picked up last fall at the Chicago Sports Spectacular. They had a show on Labor Day, and I went there with my friends, and I was able to get this one in addition to another card for like 100 altogether. So I was pretty pleased with it. It's in really good condition, apart from the paper loss that you see up in the corner. First thing you kind of notice about these cards is, again, the Art Deco design. It's kind of, again, representative of the period. The print on the back for the majority of the cards is going to be green, although there are versions that were released later in the series, probably over 35 and 36, and also later in numbers in the series that are going to have blue backs. From my understanding, is the difference in price between the blue and the greens is not too different. So that's not really something that really kind of sets apart the set as being rare or not. And my understanding, if I'm wrong, feel free to put that in the comments if you're pretty knowledgeable about the set. But all the cards I have are going to be green. So that's the first one I have, and I wanted to kind of show you a side-by-side comparison of like a Gowdy card. So these are Gowdy cards that came out in 1933. This is a red Faber card in a similar condition, a 1.5 fair. I think the colors pop a little bit more as we start showing you some of the Diamond Stars, because there are some Gowdy cards that just don't really kind of pop with some of the color choices and designs they had. I guess they were kind of direct competition with one another, but I certainly, Gowdy had more of the market share, and Gowdy was the first ones to put it into packs of gum and cards into packs of gum. And the National Chill Company that produced this set was just kind of following suit. That's kind of the first one I have against Carl Hubble. Not really featuring him today, so I don't talk too much about Carl. The next one I have was actually the very first one I purchased. And I purchased this one probably about 3 years ago now, as the Ted Lyons, as I was starting to put together my White Sox collection of Hall of Fame cards. This was the Ted Lyons I picked up. Obviously, it's in pretty great condition for a card from 1935. And a 4.5, I'll take that all day. I think it's my highest graded card from the 30s so far. But you can see like sort of the difference, how these colors kind of pop. There's more designs in the background too. And I really like that they're able to kind of capture the uniforms of the period a little bit better than the Gowdy cards did on there. The Gowdies have a little bit more of a description about stats. This one has, I think, like advice for kind of young people about baseball from the players themselves, which I thought was kind of funny, but they are appealing to a kid audience. So you can kind of imagine why that was on there. We actually are going to talk about Ted Lyons in a little bit. This one I've shown on the channel before. It was one I picked up pretty recently, just this past month, off of eBay. The Ted Lyons I also got off eBay, but the Jim Bottomley was another one I got off eBay pretty recently. Also pretty low grade. Again, if you're going to pay higher grade or get higher grades, you're going to pay a lot more money for some of these guys, including like the big stars for sure. Kind of a similar design to the one I just showed you, but it's him from a throwing standpoint from his time in Cincinnati. And the only other one I have at this point is Joe Ducky Medwick. It's one I picked up at the National this last year, and it's probably going to be going off for grading soon. I'm anticipating it's going to be a 1 or a 2, and that's okay. It kind of fits in line with the cards I already have. I was just really trying to find a card from Joe Medwick, and specifically this card, and I stumbled upon a dealer that had it, and he gave me a good price on it, so I couldn't pass it up, and I think it was the only one I saw at the whole National, which was kind of crazy. So these cards, you know, kind of getting back, I'm going to pick out Ted. You can get these on eBay pretty easily. You can find them there, but walking into your local card shop, you probably won't find a lot of stuff from the 30s in there. It just seems like that's such a card show thing to find them, and it's got to be the bigger card shows to find a lot of stuff from the 30s. They just don't seem to kind of be readily available in the general public because people are buying these and keeping them in their personal collections. So it's kind of hard to find, but certainly they are not too hard to find where you can't be able to kind of run out and get it. The other thing I wanted to mention about the set is because of its size. I mean, it is kind of missing some of the guys you might want to see in the set as far as like your everyday players, because it's only going to feature 108 cards, but there is 30 Hall of Famers in here, but there's 2 huge admissions. Garrick and Ruth had exclusive contracts at that point with the Gowdy Company, so we don't see them on these cards here, which is a shame. I know there's been reproductions of them as if they were printed in these. Imagining if they could actually be part of the set that were later included. Obviously, those are not cards that have really any value whatsoever. All right, so those are my Diamond Star collector cards. I would, if you want to ask me more questions about it, feel free to shoot me some comments. If you got some ones yourself, I would love to kind of see your collection too. So I love talking about these cards, looking at these cards. So I really kind of, it's my favorite set from the 30s and one of my favorite sets, period. The guy I'm going to talk about today is a White Sox Hall of Famer, and this is Ted Lyons. He had the nickname Sunday Teddy because later on in his career, he was kind of, in order to save his arm, which is kind of funny because they do this a lot now, he would only pitch like 1 day a week, and it would typically always be Sundays. And it would always be like on Sundays, definitely in Comiskey, because it was a draw. So people were able to come out to see their favorite pitcher, if you will. The Sox didn't really have a lot on their team at that time. There was Ted, and then there was maybe Luke Appling, and otherwise they were bad. So they did anything to kind of get fans into the stands. Some interesting things about him, just on a stat-wise, he does have a WAR of 70, which is like right in line with a lot of Hall of Famers, so there's nothing too notable there other than he kind of fits with other people that have a similar WAR. He didn't lead the league in ERA until he was 41 years old in 1942. I know a lot of the stars had gone off to fight the war at that point, so he obviously wasn't pitching against like the likes of Williams and DiMaggio anymore, but I thought that was kind of funny because he was pretty advanced age at that point. He was predominantly a knuckler, so he does have a lot of walks and actually walked more people than he struck out in his career. He's the only Hall of Fame pitcher to have that distinction. Some other things that about him is he won 20 games twice. He also lost 20 games twice in his career, which I think it's pretty typical for a knuckleball pitcher to kind of have a line like that. I think Phil Niekro is kind of a name that comes to mind. I think he did something similar like that as well. So he did go to World War II as a Marine, and he came back and then pitched a little bit in 1946 when he was a 45-year-old. Before retiring, and then later coming back as the White Sox manager for a few seasons in the late 40s, seasons that they weren't very successful yet again, and so he got no longer manager at that point. Just other things about Ted Lyons, other things he did in his career. He did appear in one All-Star game. Most of his career was going to be before the All-Star game era, so that's not really a knock on him. A lot of people from his era didn't appear in All-Star games because they just didn't play long enough, or they weren't very good by the time that the All-Star game came around in 1933. He appeared in the 39 All-Star game, for example, and he also pitched a no-hitter in August 21st of 1926, which just feels so long ago. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1955. He was on 86% of the ballots at the time he was elected. White Sox have retired his number 16, and he was one of the first players, I think, to actually be retired by the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember who the very first one was, but he's pretty close. And that's what I got to say about Sunday Teddy. And he's my Hall of Fame Showcase Player of the Day. In addition, obviously, wanted to talk just a little bit about the Diamond Stars. I may feature some of these cards later. I'll definitely feature that Ducky Medwick when it gets back from grading. Probably going to be sending that out later this month. So we'll probably be a June reveal. All right, have a great afternoon, everybody. And I hope to talk to you later this week.